Hi, I'm Dino Tripodis, your host of Whiskey Business. I was recently on an oxygen program called The Real Murders of Los Angeles. Did I murder someone? No. Did I try to catch someone who did? Yeah. And we get to hear the whole story tonight, part 1, on Whiskey Business. Hi, everybody. I'm Dino Tripodis, and welcome to Whiskey Business, the podcast not so much about whiskey as it is one with whiskey. And tonight is, I guess, a very special edition of Whiskey Business because I am reluctantly the guest.
It's been a long time coming. We've been teasing and hinting about this episode for over a year.
Finally. I've been bragging you for like 2 years now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Quick little synopsis. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, and still technically licensed today as we speak, I was a private investigator. And I worked on a insurance for murder case that was coined the Just Sweats case. We'll tell you more about the details of that in a little bit. How this conversation is going to go tonight, on past podcasts, we'd had a little something called the Whiskey Depositions. Questions from my dear friend and neighbor, Bill Mattis, who is also a respected attorney here in Columbus, Ohio,
he's an
did
attorney.
the first 2 whiskey depositions, and the third one was supposed to be what we're going to talk about tonight, those years leading up to the investigative years, and more importantly, this particular investigation, which has been the subject of books, films, magazine articles, detailed newspaper articles, several true crime types of shows, including most recently The Real Murders of Los Angeles on the Oxygen Network, which I was asked to be a part of. I was asked to be a part of one a few years back. I think it was called Scene of the Crime, and that was a horrible job that they did with that one. But the conversation has always been, when are we on Whiskey Business going to talk about it? Because despite how good, bad, or indifferent those particular programs are, and no matter how in-depth some of these books, some better than the others, Bill has one good one and one book in front of him. A lot of the minutia as to what I did has never been talked about.
Because you were on the show, right? But there's a lot of details that were left out.
There are a lot of details. There's a lot of little nooks and cranny fun stuff that really, I don't know if affected the case or had anything to do with the case. Yes, ultimately they did have something. You know what? I'm being unnecessarily modest. There's a lot of stuff that went.
The fun is in the details.
There's some fun. There's a lot of devil in the details, so to speak. So, Bill Mattis, thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for conducting this interview tonight. We appreciate it. We've had no prepping, so that's going to be the fun part.
You're right.
I have no idea.
Well, Bill has notes and notes and notes and notes.
In front of me, I have no notes. I have a cigarette. I have whiskey. We have Gotta Get a Gatto's Pizza, the unofficial pizza sponsor of Whiskey Business.
Very good.
Tonight.
I got mushroom today.
Yeah, well, they brought
really
three large. Normally we get 3 medium, but I told them we had a special night tonight, so I guess they decided to crank it up.
Including a half everything.
A half everything.
Did everybody have everything sliced?
That's good.
So thank you, Gatto's, so much. We appreciate it. We really do. Also do some other quick business, and then we'll get moving, because I think this is going to be a long one. This might actually be a 2-parter.
Well, we'll find out. Whiskey Business is the podcast not so much about whiskey as it is one
with whiskey.
Yeah. And bourbon.
And bourbon.
And whatever else we're drinking. Thank you very much for listening and subscribing on your favorite podcasting app. If you're listening on Apple iTunes, go ahead and give us a 5-star rating and leave a review. Other people learn about us through those ratings. We're on social media, Facebook, Instagram, X, I think still. I don't know.
Still.
But YouTube, Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis. John does a great job of, he posts the unedited podcast on Whiskey Business. So if you're, what you're listening to will be cleaned
which is
up
great, and sometimes...
Yeah, well, if there's problems, I'll do some editing if there's some.
He edits if there's any podcast regret.
Yeah.
Podcast remorse. We have a lot of podcast remorse.
We had podcast remorse.
Not often.
From various guests.
But that's Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis. Hit that bell button.
Ding, ding, ding.
You'll get a notification and hit the subscribe button.
Meow.
All good.
Evergreen Podcast Networks.com.
Thank you, Evergreen Podcast
They're our
Network,
parent
for being
hosting
our
company.
official parent company and for keeping us
I think that's
in
it.
the fold.
Without further ado,
Just get
All right, so quick little background. In 1987, 1988-ish, I was hired by the Pica Corporation, which is an investigative firm here in Columbus, Ohio, to do investigative work. And so I did. So they specialized in intellectual property cases, your basic counterfeits, Rolex, Gucci bags, Louis Vuitton, et cetera, et cetera. They also did insurance fraud cases as well. So when I was initially hired by the Pica Corporation, I was asked to be a undercover guy in the watch market. So I did a couple things locally, but my big case was I was sent off to set up shop in Chicago, in the flea markets of Chicago, and infiltrate the rings that were selling counterfeit product in Chicago. Technically, the client was Rolex, and the case was an intellectual property case, and it was my job to set myself up as a counterfeit dealer and ingratiate myself into that community.
Do you have a trench coat with a bunch of watches that you opened up?
No, I did not have a trench coat with a bunch of watches.
That's what I picture.
I had a table. I had everything I needed. And so I successfully, that's another story for another time, I successfully did that job.
and real quick, whiskey. All this takes place in Columbus, Ohio. I don't know if we touched on that.
No, this happened in Chicago.
Well, no, I'm just saying
That part.
Whiskey Business. I don't know if we touched on that at the beginning. Whiskey Business was recording in Columbus,
In
Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio.
And the Just Sweats is Columbus. Now you are talking about Chicago.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if somebody in Africa is listening. They have no idea what you're talking
Well,
about.
I probably was going to get to
Somewhere.
that, but at some point. But if you
All
want
right.
to speed things along and let our friends in Africa and Australia be aware, New Zealand. We do have somebody who listens in New Zealand.
All right,
Then,
so there you go for
all
you,
the better.
sir.
Then all the better. So yes, I was doing various cases for Pica, and that was one of them. And then I wandered into the Columbus offices to file a biweekly report of my activities in Chicago, how I was progressing and so forth. And the whole office was abuzz. And they were abuzz because of something that was going on with a company called Just Sweats, owned by John Hawkins and Melvin Hansen. And John Hawkins had disappeared. And there was some confusion and a lot of wonderment and questions as to where he had gone, because it was suspected now that the insurance money that was collected on his dead partner might be a little fishy, and that his partner might not actually be dead. And now we hand it over to William Mattis, attorney at law, to continue with any other further questions as far as the process of it all and how it all went down. I will tell you everything that I can candidly remember. I will maybe leave out a name or two, only because I think the names that I do leave out are what I consider to be innocents, people that were involved in this story unwillingly and probably went through enough back then that I don't particularly want to throw their name out into social media and have anybody just start looking them up to see and find questions on their own. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay.
We don't need names. We will protect the innocent.
Okay.
So many of you know Dino Tripodis as a DJ, as a fill-in
Morning show host.
DJ. I'm old.
A DJ does
He's scratching every morning.
You know him for his philanthropic efforts here in Columbus.
Why are you laughing at that for?
I'm still laughing at the DJ thing.
But you laughed at philanthropic. I mean,
I had pizza in my mouth. That was a continuation laugh.
It's a delayed laugh. You laugh when he says
I
philanthropic.
got it in my mouth.
You don't be rude.
It's a man. Anyway, thank you, Bill.
But he began his work career here in Columbus at a little store known as Lazarus. Mm-hmm. And he did undercover work at Lazarus.
I caught shoplifters.
He caught shoplifters.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you go from preventing shoplifting, Lazarus, downtown, to a private investigator?
Accidentally, by chance, I worked at Lazarus catching shoplifters. Then I got married. I had a baby on the way.
Hi, Danielle.
Hi, Danielle. That was 1982. The marriage lasted for about 5.5 years. And thank you, Chip. Thank you very much. Are you clapping for the 5.5 year run? Thank you.
You're a brave man.
We both gave it our best shot. And then I ran into somebody who had previously worked, I think, in loss prevention, is what we called it, and was working for a company called Pica Investigations, and said to me, would you ever consider doing private investigative work? I'm 27.5 years of age. I say, sure. I go in for an interview, and apparently qualified enough to be licensed through that particular company and to start on my merry way and start doing investigative work, whatever was doled out, insurance fraud cases, no domestics. They didn't deal with domestics or anything like that, nothing sloppy like that, but mostly insurance fraud cases and intellectual property cases was where they were making a lot of their bread and butter, because at that particular time there was a huge amount of counterfeit products with Gucci, Louis Vuitton as far as the bags, and then the watches was the huge one, the Rolex watches, the Movados, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where a lot of those companies were tired of taking it on the chin and were trying to find the people that were making the counterfeit watches and put a stop to it. So
Did you take criminology courses at Ohio State?
Yeah, I did. That was part of my educational background. I was a criminology major, and
Good one, Greg.
Way to go! You're doing a great job, Bill.
I was a criminology major and an English lit minor, and my college career was less than stellar. I did great in all my criminology, sociology classes, but it was terrible in anything I did that had no interest for me.
So when and how did you obtain your private investigator's license?
Through the company. I was an independent contractor through Pica. That's how they did it. So the license was through Pica, and I worked through Pica, and through Pica I was a licensed investigator through Pica, not my own investigative license, not paying my own insurance, et cetera, not going through everything you need to go through in order to be a private investigator. There are literally hours and hours of training that are necessary. Sure. But if you go through a company like I did and check all the boxes, which I did, no previous records, no issues, and so forth and so on, you can be licensed as an independent contractor through that company, which I was.
Okay. So under your contract, the blanket part of the blanket contract was that you had a license supplied through the company.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah. Any license that I have now as an investigator would be still through Pica.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You still do work with Pica?
That's a question for another time. I have done work for Pica. I've done work. Why are you being so innocent? In the last couple of years.
I know.
In the last couple of years, I did some work for them.
I'm being a listener. I'm being curious.
I just I came out of retirement, as it were. Anyway.
And back to Greg's overarching question about this being in Columbus, Ohio. Take us back to 1980-something in Columbus, Ohio, when there's a small shop on High Street across from the university, known as the Ohio State University, that sells just sweats.
Just sweats.
Take on me. Sorry, I'm trying to get it.
What was this company?
Across from
Just
Ohio
Sweats?
Union. Ohio Union, yeah.
Yeah, Just Sweats was the creation of a retail establishment by John Hawkins and Melvin Hansen, who worked together on a great many things and a great many scams prior to the one we're going to talk about this evening. The concept for Just Sweats was actually, when I say stolen, it was inspired by a company that John Hawkins saw in California called Pure Sweats that sold just sweats. So he adopted that particular model, if you will, and decided to open up Just Sweats, thinking he would give it a go here in Ohio. Now, what's debatable is, did he really want to open up a store, or did he think it'd be enticing enough of an idea to get investors and then split, and which he had done in other small little things, establishing XYZ companies, getting money, and then those companies folding and going by the wayside. I think one of the problems that occurred, and it was a good problem to have, is that Just Sweats actually took off and became very successful. And look at us. We're making money the old-fashioned way. And they consequently started to expand and grow. As you know, there were a lot of stores. Not just the one on campus. There were other ones. and storefronts wanted their stores in their little strip mall so badly that they were willing to pay the money to build the storefronts out as long as they came in.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a hot commodity.
I remember growing up, there was a lot of just stores, like just socks. I always thought it was funny growing up to go in and be like, "Do you have baseball hats?" No, just socks.
Or just panties.
That became Victoria's Secret.
Yeah, it did. Thank you. I don't know how serious this podcast is going to be tonight, Bill. You're in control. Normally, I would be telling them what to do, but apparently the boys want to chime in with as much as they possibly can.
That's true. He said he brought the panties into it.
That's right. So continue, sir.
Sure. Just Sweats, Columbus-based, 10, 11, 12 stores, starts to grow,
Yeah.
grossing millions of dollars.
Yes.
Investors want to come in.
They see a good thing.
What happened to sink this ship?
When you don't know how to run a company and know nothing about running a company, eventually I think that's going to catch up to you. First of all, they overbought. They overbought a lot of inventory, a lot, and consequently started to open up more stores to try to dump the inventory. And I think, like anything that's popular, it has its high point, and maybe you can. Now, this is just me speculating. Maybe you can take advantage of where it is at a high point and figure out and pivot and see what you're supposed to do next. But I don't think they had any idea that this was going to be successful. The success of this company took them off guard. These are guys that were used to just doing something and getting in and getting the money and getting out.
Which takes me to the book written by Robin Yoakum and Catherine Kandinsky, two former stellar Columbus Dispatch reporters, who dove into not only Hawkins and Hanson's Just Sweats, but their prior businesses and their prior, shall we say, dalliances with insurance fraud.
They're scams?
Alleged scams.
Alleged scams? Okay.
I like the word dalliance.
Which takes us to New York City.
New York City was an interesting place for those boys.
Do you have any stories about what they did in New York City to scam insurance money, which acted, in some people's minds, as the seed money for Just Sweats here in Columbus, Ohio?
Yeah. Well, one was to rent an apartment and fill it up with rental furniture, and then empty the apartment and fill it up with crap furniture, and then have the crap furniture
Go back.
stolen.
Ah.
Okay, and claim that it was the rental furniture that was stolen, and then insure that furniture and get the money. And they would have two trucks.
They had two trucks
Genius.
outside, and they had paintings, and they had rented furniture.
That's crazy.
And according to Insured for Murder, Mr. Hawkins took the movers out to lunch because he was such a nice guy.
Oh yeah, he was a great.
While
guy.
they switched out the furniture
Yeah.
from the stolen
way.
truck,
Right.
and then claimed, Mr. Hawkins, I believe, claimed that he had been robbed at gunpoint,
Correct.
left in Brooklyn,
Yep.
and all of the furniture had been stolen, and they used that money as seed money to come back to Columbus and start Just Sweats, which was set up to lose money, only to claim more insurance and or
Right.
bankruptcy
Yeah.
as they took money out of the company.
No, were they both from Columbus, just to clarify?
No.
Or neither one of them? was?
Mr. Hansen grew up in Portsmouth, Ohio.
Oh, that's pretty close to your hometown there.
Yeah.
And Mr. Hawkins, I believe, went to high school in Columbus. His mother was, after this, his mother was found in Vegas, talked to investigators.
Yeah,
Did you ever speak with?
I spoke with Jackie on the phone, and I'm going a little deeper into the case at this point, but I actually talked to her on the phone and had a long conversation with her. Of course, she was under the guise that I thought her son was innocent. And the story that I was wanting to do was to find out where her son was, get her to have her son turn himself in, and I would advocate to prove his innocence, that he was being railroaded into this whole thing, that he was an innocent bystander. And she goes, "You're right. He is innocent. He's under the influence of all these other people, and my son's getting a bad rap," and so forth and so on. And she came very, very close to telling me where he was, but she ultimately did not.
And before we get ahead of ourselves,
Yeah.
one of the most interesting things that I found about his mother was her statement to Catherine Kandinsky of the Columbus Dispatch
Yeah.
that her son was a gigolo working at Studio 54 in New York City.
Yeah.
And that's how he got his start and his stardom.
It's very lucrative, by the way.
Are you speaking from experience?
I saw the movie.
He was a gigolo. It is documented that John Hawkins had dalliances with both women and men, both.
How many times can we say dalliance?
I don't know.
One more time. I thought I'd bring it back so it didn't seem so isolated.
Right.
I wanted to make it a common part of tonight's lexicon. So,
do that.
I'll try and
We're
work
gonna have
it
a
in
dalliance
later.
with dalliance.
That's the word of the day, right?
But yeah, he was charming in every sense of the word, attractive, charming, and men loved him, women loved him, and he took advantage of both sexes and made a nice little living. He also had other ambitions as well. You know, he wanted to be famous. He wanted to be an actor.
And in Columbus, Ohio, he was pretty famous, wasn't he?
Well, he did all of his own commercials.
So he was on TV.
He was on TV. He did all the Just Sweats commercials. Women loved him. He partied hard. And, oh, you're the guy in the Just Sweats commercials. Yeah. A lot of people, his whole life could have gone a different way. He auditioned for Grease 2, the movie. And
College dropout.
yeah.
Or, I'm sorry, high school dropout.
Got hired to be in Grease 2,
really?
the movie.
Wow.
Until his particular part in the movie, so they say, was cut. So when his part got cut, there was no more Grease 2. And back he goes into what he knows best as far as making money. He was a hustler.
His big break, Grease 2.
Well, a lot of people love Grease 2. Our buddy Dan Swartout thinks Grease 2 is superior over the movie
He also
Grease.
likes Mr. Belvedere.
Yeah, so
That's right.
Anyway, we digress.
We digress. So John Hawkins, Gene Hansen come back from New York City, set up shop, start advertising, obviously in the Columbus Dispatch, on Channel 10, Channel 4, Channel 6. For those not from Columbus, that's ABC, NBC, and CBS here in Columbus. Successful store, original store out in Whitehall, store on campus, stores in other major metropolitan areas. What's going on in the world that causes everyone to go into these stores and buy Just Sweats?
I think that was probably, I'm thinking back to the 80s, and 80s was all about what was the flavor of the
Jane
of the
Fonda
month.
and the workout tapes.
And workouts, yeah, everything was about working out and being casual and comfortable, and sweats became a fashion statement as much as anything. People were wearing them out and about wherever they went, to the grocery store.
It's like the yoga pants are today.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
what's the
Lululemon.
Lululemon, yeah, Lululemon of its day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a popular type of attire.
And by all accounts, from everything that I've read about this, and I moved to Columbus in 1988, so I kind of lived through it, lived through the news cycle, read the Columbus Dispatch daily, watched the evening news. These gentlemen were on the way up, as you mentioned. They were at the apex of the career as far as Just Sweats. Something turned in 1987, 1988, and they decided that this business was just too much for them. They turned the accounting over from an actual accountant to Mr. Hansen to sign checks. Obviously, it was a red flag.
Yeah.
But at that point in time, it appeared that there were investors wanting to buy franchises.
Yes.
And this was I don't want to say the beginning, but this was the burgeoning of franchises. This was the burgeoning of people buying into Wendy's, Burger King, McDonald's. And Just Sweats saw this as an opportunity to make even more money. but their books were cooked. Did you, as a private investigator, look into their books, their accounting, their systems, the problems that they had in the late 80s?
No. Let's maybe this will help the line of questioning. Let's go back to when I strolled in from Chicago to file my reports for what I was doing with the
It was a dark and stormy night in Columbus, Ohio.
intellectual property. The whole office was abuzz.
South German village.
Everybody was roaming around.
Detective
Doing-
Dino Tripodis.
Well, and I said, "What's going on?" And I got a Reader's Digest version of Just Sweats and some of the improprieties that were alleged to have happened, and that John Hawkins was gone. His car abandoned at the Columbus airport, and everybody wanted to talk to John Hawkins, and everybody wanted to find out where John Hawkins was, not to arrest John Hawkins, not to charge John Hawkins with anything, but to talk to John Hawkins to find out what was going on. Because at that point, John Hawkins had collected insurance money on his dead partner, Melvin Hansen, who had died. And Allegedly. Well, according to the insurance company and everybody else, yeah, there were 2 insurance policies. And memory does not serve me correctly. I can't remember which one paid off and which one stopped the check. But one of them did pay off. And the second one did not, because there was some rather observant clerk, and I can't believe that person has never come into play, because if it wasn't for that person, they might have gotten away with this whole thing.
And for those of you listening, can you tell them, Dino, what it was that gave this fake murder away?
Specifically, what gave the fake murder away, as far as you got your thumb up.
It was a thumbprint
Oh,
of Melvin Hansen
okay.
at the BMV. That's what the claims supervisor found to raise the red flag to stop the second payment. When they looked at the autopsy and they looked at the thumbprint, it was a thumbprint that turned the insurance company suspicious, because the thumbprint did not match the dead body in California.
The thumbprint, I think, was checked into secondly. The first, the way I was told at that particular time back in 1988, was that in particular insurance clerk was looking at a picture of Melvin Hansen and a picture of Ellis Greene, and was not comfortable with
the photographs.
Now, who's Ellis Greene?
Yeah, you skipped over.
Ellis Greene
Skip
for
over
the
anything. We'll get to it.
for the readers out there.
We'll get
We'll get to Ellis.
We'll get to it.
Slow down, Spanky.
I know the story and I'm lost.
Yes, me too.
That's not nothing new though.
The bodies didn't match up, so maybe the next step was the thumbprint and so forth and so on.
So the claims manager, the claims supervisor at the time,
Okay.
allegedly had misgivings. They were the same height, same weight,
Yeah. And looked similar.
and looked relatively similar before the plastic surgery.
Right.
We'll save that for later.
But was the dead body all bloated and everything, making it impossible to identify?
We'll get there.
We'll get
We'll
there.
get there. We'll get there.
Let us take the steps, boys.
Let us develop.
We want to hear it so bad.
So, as the story is told, Melvin Hansen informs all of his coworkers that he has AIDS and cancer, or cancer with AIDS as a secondary backup. He's going to die. So he's going to leave Columbus,
Correct.
go out to the West Coast, correct?
Yes.
Only something happens when the accountant turns over the books to Mr. Hansen. He leaves town with approximately $1.8 million of company funds. And much like Die Hard, which is a Christmas movie,
No argument.
Yeah, I won't argue with that.
No
either.
argument there.
converts them into bearer bonds,
Yes.
and takes off. John Hawkins takes off to go find him, comes back to Columbus as a hero with everything but $265,000 approximately, because he said that's what he gave Mr. Hanson for his portion of the company. And he's now the 100% owner. And he deposits the funds back in the company so it can pay its bills.
He's a hero.
That doesn't make the Columbus Dispatch 4, 6, 10 news, does it?
No.
No. It seems logical.
So
As much as it could be.
Hanson basically swindles money from the company. Hawkins comes back as a savior.
Supposedly.
And the company still is failing.
Right.
What happens next?
What happens next?
What happens next?
What happens next is what happened. I mean, it continues to unravel.
And for the people on the other side of the microphone who don't understand, what did happen?
What happened is the company went under, and everybody started to point fingers at everybody else. As far as this is from my take of it, okay, and now Hawkins leaves and goes. He splits, but he doesn't split until after that first insurance check is cashed. Once that first,
Well, let's stop there, just so that everyone is on the same page. Hanson is out in California.
okay,
Talk to me about neurologist Dr. Richard Boggs.
Dr. Richard Boggs, respected Beverly Hills physician, who had a relationship with both Melvin Hansen and John Hawkins.
An intimate relationship. Is that correct? Or is that alleged?
Alleged intimacies with, who knows if he had one with Hawkins, with Hansen. Like I said, there was a lot of talk as to what was
Formerly
going on.
married, recently divorced.
Yeah, he was married. He was, like I said, respected and so forth. And he hooked up with these guys. And okay, I got to backtrack a little bit, just a little bit, because this, like I said, this is a lot of stuff that I found out through my conversations with John Hawkins' roommates. So yeah, Hansberry, to your credit, we are jumping back and forth a little bit. So I apologize.
We're like a
following
good
your lead.
movie.
I'm following your lead.
It's okay. Dr. Richard Boggs supplied, let's go back to a little bit of the backstory. Richard Boggs would supply Hawkins with pills that he could sell at studio in New York City. He supplied him with ample amounts of drugs that he could sell and make a profit over.
Was Boggs selling the quote-unquote miracle drug that would delay or stop AIDS?
Oh, I didn't know about that. That's a new one on me.
Yeah, it's reported in the Insured for Murder book that there was a quote-unquote treatment that he was giving to Hanson at the time.
Okay.
And or Hawkins.
Did not know about the miracle drug.
Was he just selling pills that gave men boners? Is that
No, they were not boner pills. They
Boner
were
pills.
All the party drugs.
they were party drugs, and there was obviously there were drug cocktails at the time that were thought to be able to prevent the spread of HIV and or AIDS.
Now, I was familiar with all the drugs that he was just selling for partying, for partying purposes at the clubs. Hawkins was the guy to go to. Boggs supplied him. See, what I know about it is very basic and simple as far as the connections, A to B and C.
Why Los Angeles? Why Hollywood? Why were they out on the West Coast, Hawkins and Hanson?
Well, that's where, I don't know why they were out there initially. Maybe, I honestly don't. I just know that that's where Hawkins got the idea for Pure Sweats. See, a lot of people, what you have to
Grease
understand.
2.
Huh?
Grease 2. He wanted to be
Grease
a
2.
movie. Yeah.
What a lot of people need to know is that I was brought into this, again, I'll say it again, for a specific purpose. Help us find John Hawkins. Okay, so when you tell me, find John Hawkins, all right, give me some details. Who's talking? His roommate. Who's his roommate? Eric DeSando. John Hawkins and Eric DeSando were roommates here in Columbus, Ohio. Is he talking? He's not talking to the authorities, but he's talking to all the media. Okay?
We've got a picture here.
Yeah. Eric DeSando, John Hawkins, and
Jim Connors,
Jim
local Columbus
Connors.
attorney. Actually, attorney that represented a few people associated with this matter.
Right.
All young, relatively attractive, good-looking men
Well,
I have the picture
I'd say
upstairs.
so.
Yeah,
They
I have a copy of the picture.
One
From
of
my
the things
scrapbook.
that one of the things that humored me when I was reading through this, and I have a current case with Jim. He's a great attorney. One of the things that struck me is the places in Columbus where these guys hung out. They were basically right down the street from us right now. They were all hanging out at the Continent, the Elephant Bar, the R&R Bar.
R&R was a big bar. Yeah, big bar for them.
love that area.
Yeah, Elephant Bar, R&R.
Remember the
That was a
Elephant
big
Bar.
hangout
The
for
Funny
them.
Bone.
Big hangout for them. Limousines, partying. Yeah, I mean, they did it up big.
Was that just part of the culture in the late 80s
Oh,
in
yeah.
Columbus, Ohio?
Yeah.
That's where everyone went?
I assume so. You got to remember that I was married for 5.5 years. So the 80s up till 1988, I wasn't out much. I was a working stiff, working 2 jobs.
Denise will check with you later.
Yeah, did not. So I didn't get to experience the explosion of the party
Yeah.
in the late till the late 80s, and even then, I pretty much stuck to my guns. I was never a huge partier / drug user. No cocaine.
You weren't into the disco scene?
No Quaaludes.
Yeah.
No.
He was
none
up
of
at the country bar up there.
Yeah.
What was the name of it? Yeah, doing
Yeah.
line dancing.
none of that stuff.
None of that stuff.
But I was brought in to. Well, I wasn't even brought in. I was curious. I said, "Is the roommate talking to anybody?" And they said he's not talking to any authority figures. I said, "Who's he talking to?" He says he seems to really enjoy talking to the media. And I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Has he talked to anybody from Rolling Stone magazine?" And they go, "No, we don't think so." I said, "Well, maybe he should." And they said, "Who do you know at Rolling Stone magazine?" I said, "Nobody." I'll pretend to be a reporter from Rolling Stone magazine.
On the cover of the
Rolling-
Rolling
yeah.
Stone.
Let me pretext call him, that's what we called it, and see if I can get in to talk to him. So they gave me his number. I called him. I told him that I was visiting from Chicago, taken
That
with
part
the
was
truth,
true.
yeah, and read the story and found it fascinating. And I said, the more I read about it, I said, the more I started to feel like I think your buddy's getting railroaded. Same story I told his mother. And I said, I would love to come talk to you about it if you'd let me. And he said, sure, man, I'll come talk to you. And I said, you know what? If it ends up being a great story, there might be some money in it for you. Mm-hmm. So I went.
What name did you use?
I used my first name, Gust, and my middle name, James.
Gustav James.
Not Gustav, Gust.
Gust James.
Gust James. Yeah. As close to the truth as I could possibly get. No big
Why
fictitious.
did you go with Hunter B. Thompson?
I don't know. I think it was taken. I
don't think he would have known.
He probably not would have known, because his affectionate term for me was Gust the Musk. He used to cheat. That was his way of being clever. I think it's in one of those books,
I don't even know what that
or
means.
his little nickname for me.
It doesn't rhyme, that's
Yeah,
for sure.
no, it doesn't. I think it's in Cheating Death. Yeah. So yeah, I went and had a long conversation with Eric DeSando.
And what were your first impressions of Eric DeSando? Because I've got some different impressions from reading these two books.
My first impression of Eric DeSando was he loved the attention, first of all. So he loved everything that was going on. And he also expressed a lot of concern, and also was of the opinion that his friend was being railroaded and so forth and so on. There's no way John could have done all this. And then the more we talked, the more we continued to talk, his guard would come down a little bit, and he'd say a few other things here and there that I would make note of, that seemed kind of, you're saying all the right things. I mean, it seemed to me like he had learned very quickly how to talk to the media, and at the same time keep himself out of the fray. I think he was, because he had nothing to do with the murders.
No.
He had nothing to do with the murders, but
Had
he
absolutely nothing to do with this,
nothing
and
to
we
do
don't
with
want
them at
to.
all.
We don't want to
nothing to do with them at all.
impugn his reputation in any way, shape, or form here
No.
on Whiskey Business.
Not at all. Not at all. He had nothing to do with the actual
But my
murders.
impression, Dino, of him was he was a true believer
In what?
in John B. Hawkins.
Yeah, like I said,
He believed he did nothing wrong.
So it was
He
genuine.
believed-
Anything he
It
talked
was.
about with Dino.
It was almost a boyhood friendship. There's no way that my friend could have done this, is the impression that I got. And I think it's the impression that Catherine Kandinsky got. I don't think Robin Yoakum was on that boat.
I don't think
And I'm
I
not
was
really
completely
sure about
either.
Edwin Chen.
I don't think I was completely on that boat either. I think that whatever Eric was telling me, he was telling me just enough, but that he knew more. And eventually, he did tell me more. He did tell me more. If we were going to continue this conversation, he said, I'm going to probably need some money to continue talking. So I got a $500 check as a check of good faith. I went back.
Was that a money order?
Yeah, it might have been a money order.
Had to be.
It might have been a money order.
You couldn't
It
put
was-
pica on the money
exactly.
order.
It had to be a
Put
money
Rolling
order.
Stone.
A money order, and went back and said, "This is $500 in good faith," and we continued to talk. Here's how the whole thing kind of broke open. To be perfectly honest with you, after a conversation, and I took copious notes the whole time of everything he was telling me.
Did you keep them?
Oh yeah, I kept them. They're all upstairs. In fact, they're on the dot matrix paper with the hole punches on the side.
Can you explain to Greg what a dot matrix is?
Where the kind where you had to rip off the sides in order.
And to be careful to rip off the. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
Green
You
and
just-
white
you just said
stripes
that.
on one side.
Yeah.
Oh, you're older than you look.
My dad used to steal it from work back in the day.
Statute of limitations is run.
When Eric invited me over to his apartment, which was also John's apartment,
Correct.
and John is gone.
And this was in Upper Arlington?
I want to say more towards north, more
Worthington.
Worthington, Westerville-ish.
Yeah.
Okay.
As I recall. He was watching a baseball game. He was watching what was then the Cleveland Indians. I don't know who they were playing. And I said, do you mind if I just walk around a little bit in the apartment, kind of get a feel for the guy we're talking about? He goes, sure, man. Just whatever. Just don't mess anything up. I said, I'm not going to mess anything up. The apartment was a mess to begin with. So I wandered upstairs, went into Hawkins' room, looked through his medicine cabinets, found a bunch of different types of medications and pills, but the big thing was a big garbage bag full of stuff. Cards, letters, bills,
Phone
Receipts,
bills,
yeah.
very importantly.
phone bills, just a potpourri full of stuff, which in 1988, before there was the internet where you can find and Google anything, a bag of trash was the
gold,
most
baby.
amazing
I bet.
find in the world.
Oh yeah.
It was gold, Jerry. Gold, I tell
Gold,
you.
Jerry.
And I was able to get the bag of trash out of the house, get everything copied.
Did you throw it out the window?
Yeah, the back window or something. Into the
That
bushes?
is the purported story
Oh, okay.
that it went out the back window.
How'd you do it then?
I actually carried it out
Okay.
Over
did
like
not.
past the dude.
Right in front of it?
right, yeah, literally.
Was the guy not paying attention? What the fuck?
No,
with
he
the
was
big
not
bag?
paying attention.
The hell?
Holy moly! You're
The
kidding
Indians
me.
were on a pennant hunt.
I guess.
Was he that enthralled with the Indians playing baseball?
I got the bag of trash out of the apartment, and I brought the bag of trash back to the apartment.
No, you did.
You even
not.
brought it back.
You brought it
I
back.
never heard that part of the story.
I actually brought it back.
Did you Xerox every piece of
Every
trash?
piece of it.
Oh my gosh!
And
Why
it's
didn't you just
upstairs right
keep
now.
it?
So at page 223
Back to his line of question.
of Insured for Murder by Catherine Kandinsky and Robin Yoakum, two
Dispatch
Columbus
writers.
dispatch writers. It says that Volpe told them his investigators picked up trash at the Sandoz apartment and traced the telephone bill of Wolfgang Eugene von Snowden.
Holy shit! Von Schnauden.
Snowden!
Schnauden, not Snowden. Schnauden. Yes, there was a phone bill with Wolfgang von Schnauden, but even more importantly, there was a
Who the hell is Wolfgang Eugene von
von Schnauden.
Snowden?
Eugene von Schnauden, a.k.a. Melvin Hansen.
Yeah.
And there was also a lease for a condo in Florida. And in that bag was a copy of the lease. And on that lease is Wolfgang von Schnauten, a.k.a. Melvin Hansen, John Hawkins, and also Richard Boggs,
The doc.
the doc. They're all signed.
Dick Boggs.
Actually, once again, according to this book,
I have a copy of the...
Dr. Boggs and John B. Hawkins were character witnesses for Wolfgang Eugene von
Yes,
Schnauten
yes.
so that he could lease
Right.
said property so that they could pull another insurance scam
Right, right.
down in Florida. So take the listeners back to 1980-something, where you actually have to go through trash to find information that's not available on the internet.
I took everything out of that bag of trash and I put it into what I call little organized piles. Bills, the lease. More importantly to me were the cards and the letters.
And what did you find?
In the cards and the letters that Hawkins kept, I found cards and letters from men and women and his mother as well. All of them adoring, loving letters to John Hawkins. And he loved to be loved. So I started to literally, while I'm sitting there,
Could charm the pants off a man or a woman.
yeah, I started to kind of, I always said profiling before profiling was cool. Started to put together like who am I trying to find? What kind of guy am I trying to find? And what I'm trying to find is a very charming guy who's loved by all. Consequently, I believe that he would not be a successful fugitive. Because in order to be a successful fugitive, you need to cut all ties with anybody from your past.
Yeah.
But Hawkins seemed to me, from everything that I was...
That sounds like experience, Dino. Are you a fugitive?
No, I'm not a fugitive.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Go
But,
on.
yeah, that's why I have a podcast and work at a radio station.
Not as a DJ, but as a morning host.
As a morning show host, yes.
His real name is Wolfgang
Von
von
Schnauten.
Schnauten.
My real name is Hunter S. Thompson. That's right.
And he worked for the Rolling Stone.
So yeah, after we gathered up all this information, and there were bills, there were phone bills, and we traced all the stuff and so forth and so on. I told my bosses, and consequently told other law enforcement superiors who now were coming into the fold. Now it was becoming a bigger issue, if you will, and a little 27-year-old Dino Tripodis said, "I don't think he's going to be a successful fugitive. I think that if he's on the run, he's going to go to one of these 5 places in the next, 48 to 72 hours because he can't be, he can't not be around people who love and believe him.
He needs the attention.
He needs the attention. He needs the security, and at the time, if I remember correctly, it was still a local case. It wasn't this America's Most Wanted story that showed up later down the line. And I remember it clear as a bell. It was the okay.
Yeah, you got it, buddy.
All right. Well, we're not gonna put people in 4 different places waiting for this guy to show up. But good work.
Good action, buddy.
Good.
Why don't you let the professionals handle this, little lady?
Yeah.
Do you want a sticker?
What was one of the places? The Elephant Bar or something
No,
like that?
these are places all across the country.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Some locally and some out of state as well. And
Friends, family,
after we started
whatever.
tracing phone numbers and phone calls and started making calls and so forth and so on, people who had no idea that because also remember this, it was a Columbus story. It was not a national story at that particular time.
And we'll get to that a little bit later. The L.A. police and the L.A. investigative bodies.
Okay, and people did not communicate with each other.
Didn't want to get into it. There was a dead body. It was done. What humored me, once again, going back to you picking trash.
But I also want to say that he did show up.
He did.
At quite a few of those places that I had singled out, and they could have If somebody would
Found
have
him.
been there, they would have found him. They would have brought him in for questioning. And
Would you like to do the "Told You So" dance now?
Yeah, really.
no,
A dalliance with the told you so.
A dalliance with the "Told You
no.
So."
and maybe everything wouldn't have gone for as long as it did. Anyway,
Back before profiling was profiling.
Mm-hmm.
What also struck me in this book was there's a lot of conversations between Catherine Kandinsky, who was the youngest reporter at the Columbus Dispatch at the time at the age of 26, and Robin Yoakum, who was a hardened reporter by that time,
and a damn good one,
and a damn good one.
and a damn Robin, damn good fiction writer too.
They asked the question, do you really think that the investigators picked through the trash for those phone records? More likely, he got a friend inside the phone company.
No, boy.
And I laughed,
Who said that?
Robin Yoakum to Catherine Kandinsky. On page 224
Said that
of
we had a
Insured for
friend in
Murder.
the phone company.
Said, I doubt that he picked through the trash. More likely, he's got a friend in the phone company.
I had a friend in the phone.
Volpe.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
about
Volpe.
you.
Volpe had a friend
No,
in the
Volpe had a friend.
Volpe
in the
had
phone
a friend in the phone
You know,
company.
maybe Volpe did have a friend in the phone company, but we went through that trash.
and found the phone number
Phone numbers
that
galore.
led to the break in Florida, which led to California, which led to ultimately the unraveling of this matter.
Right.
Now, you mentioned piles and phone records and
I
making
can
copies
remember.
of
I can
everything.
that I can remember. I can remember because I'm a little OCD. Just I know you wouldn't know it by looking around at this place.
Nah.
You wouldn't know it by looking around at this place. But if you look closely at this place, you will see that there is a place for everything, and everything is in its place.
It's in its order.
It's in its order.
But the table's missing from the nook.
No,
It threw me off.
It's over. It's around the corner, and it's been gone for like a year and a half.
Yeah, thanks for coming over, Bill.
It's over there.
Yeah, that's a
It's
nook
over there.
There's a nook
I
right
get nesty in the wintertime, and I start moving shit around.
This is like
And
the third variation of
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
it's
this-
nice.
Everything keeps changing. But I can remember clear as a bell me taking every little piece of thing and putting it in what I thought would be its
Come on, you were getting paid by the hour.
Plus expenses.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, you're right. I was not on salary. I was and putting everything in its specific piles. You know, bills,
Sure.
utility bills, phone bills, correspondences,
The letters,
from men,
cards,
the letters, everything was in its own pile. So yeah, I had all that and went through all that. And copies was made of everything, and I took it back.
How did you get it back in the apartment?
Same way I took it out, very casually.
And then those records were later found once DeSandro took all of John's stuff and put it into a storage and turned it all over to the Columbus Dispatch reporters.
Okay.
How is it that you got it back in? Just knocked on the door and said, hey, let me in. I got a bag of trash here.
No, he knew I was taking the bag of trash out, and didn't think anything of it.
Like you were doing him a favor? This guy sounds stupid as hell.
Sometimes things just go your way.
I'd rather be lucky than good any day.
Yeah,
true.
something that just go your way. And I said, there's some stuff in here that I'd love to check out and see. Some cards and letters, and give me a little background on the guy. That's what I said. There's some cards and letters in here that give me a little background on the guy that I'm
Plus,
looking
you'd paid
for.
him $500. Plus, you were a Rolling Stone reporter, Hunter B. Thompson.
Right.
Gus
Hunter
the
S.
Must.
Thompson. or whatever. Gus the Must. There was a relationship there. We struck a good chord. There was humor, and so were we joking, so forth and so on. And I said, I'll bring it back. And I did. I brought it back.
Now, while you were married, do you recall talking to Denise about this at all?
I wasn't
or
married at the time.
You were
I was divorced. now.
divorced.
I was divorced.
Who did you share this with at the time?
Nobody.
Anyone?
Just the people I worked with.
And this was front page Columbus Dispatch for 6-7 months. So the belief in Columbus is that one of the Just Sweats founders is dead. One of the Just Sweats founders has cashed a life insurance policy and is on the lam.
But they don't know why he's on the lam per se. Right?
Turns over all his rights to the company, lets the people in senior management basically run the company, says I'm done.
Yeah.
Many people make a trek to Las Vegas to talk with his mother.
Yeah, Jackie Syrian.
What's Jackie's backstory? Any idea?
At the time, I only knew as what she was doing in Las Vegas. She was a waitress. Some people that say that at one point she was in the show world out in Vegas, but at the time, at this particular time, she was waitressing out in Las Vegas.
And she, much like DeSandro, was a true believer in her son.
True believer in her son. Yep. Sketchy. There was supposedly he was actually with his mom. That was one of the places that he did go to.
Well, DeSandro actually went out to Vegas with Kandinsky, believing that John would show up to meet his mom out there.
Right. That is correct.
Was
Did that happen?
Was that one of the places that you said he's definitely going to show up to his mom's house? Was that one of the places?
No, actually, yeah, his mom was definitely one of them, but there were other people too. I looked at the amount of correspondence with certain people and who he seemed to have the closest thing to, and kind of made my limited choices that way, based on what I was reading and the intensity of the letters.
And the tea leaves told you Mom, Vegas, L.A.
Some other places too, which I honestly, it's 1988. I don't recall, but I do remember singling certain places out. I think there was a total of 4 that I said he'll show up at least. Maybe there's more than 4, but I said he'll show up at least. He showed up at least 3 or 4 of them while he was on the move and on the run.
So were you following the dispatch at the time and the reporting that Yoakum and Kandinsky were doing?
No.
Were you following the court proceeding that Mel Weinstein had filed to keep him from taking the money?
No.
Were you aware at least that an injunction had been issued by
Yes.
Judge Dale Crawford that prevented him from moving any money while Mel Weinstein tried to find him
I heard that, yeah.
and run this all down?
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you ever speak with Mel, another great
No.
Columbus attorney that I've known
No.
for decades?
I would file my reports, do my reports, hand them over to my good friend, Mr. Vince Volpe, and Vince would communicate that to the attorneys.
And Vince was business in the front, party in the back, full-on mullet.
Hey, at the time,
Yes.
he was right in step.
Hey, I got pictures of him here in
He
these
was
books.
right in step.
He looked right in step.
No, I can't say anything about long hair. and
Dude,
mullets.
you
I
had
think
the mullet
I
too,
think
dude.
I had it going on too there for a minute.
let's call that a mullet.
I know I did.
No, man. I mean,
So did a 28-year-old Dino Tripodis know what the hell was going on?
yeah, I knew what was going on, but a 28-year-old Dino Tripodis was very focused on one thing and using what I had in order to find. It was like, again, simple. Use what I got to see if I can get and find John Hawkins. If you can find John Hawkins and get him back here, then my work is done.
So you had blinders on. You're hyper focused on that one.
Hyper focused on Eric DeSando. Yeah. Eric DeSando was my key to it all. That bag of trash, which he let me take out and copy and take it back.
Why did he do that?
Who knows why he let me do it? I don't know. Maybe, like I
why'd you
said,
bring
it
it
was
back?
30-some years ago. Maybe I was persuasive. I don't remember. All I remember is walking out and finding a bag of trash and getting it out and promising that I would bring it back.
He sounds like a
And
goofball.
I just want to end part 1 on probably on a sad note for you. The ring that you're wearing in this picture of a young, strapping Dino Tripodis.
I saw a close up of it. Yeah.
I remember, you are not under oath, Dino.
I'm not under
Even though you're being cross-examined.
Let the
This is in the book.
Let the record show.
let the
Cheating
record
Death.
show that I've handed Mr. Tripodis.
Oh, yeah.
Cheating Death.
The book Cheating Death by Eric Chen,
Yeah.
an LA reporter. And could you let everyone know what that
What a
ring
handsome
is?
fella.
A thin, handsome fella.
All right. I'm sure you were thin in 1988
I'm sure I
as
was.
well.
Yeah.
I know what that ring is. That ring belonged to my father.
And we have any idea where that ring is?
Yeah. It's sitting and probably sold.
You think your brother has it?
No. Years after this, when I started to migrate from investigative work into stand-up, And for a while, I did both, investigative work and stand-up. I made decent money back in there working as an investigator and made shit money as a stand-up. And I pawned the ring. There was one month in particular where the money was really short, and I was short-stacked, and was paying child support and had to pay the rent, and I pawned the ring with every intention of hopefully getting the ring back.
Were you still in Columbus at the time?
I was in Columbus at the time.
Do you remember where you pawned it?
Yeah.
Do you still have the ticket?
Somewhere. Was there a Bernie's pawn shop?
There was a Bernie's, a Maury's.
Yeah, there was a Bernie's. It was Bernie's pawn shop. Yeah. It was a nice ring.
It stands out.
It
as
stands
opposed
out.
to the cocktail in your hand. Ever-present.
Ever-present cocktail in my hand. Yeah, the ring. And, everybody needs a good rationalization. My father, we discussed this in previous podcasts, wasn't the best man and wasn't the greatest father. But I had that ring. And my rationalization at the time was, well, when you and Mom divorced, you didn't give Mom a dime at any point, at any time when she was raising us in Steubenville. You didn't do anything of significance financially. Maybe this ring is your way of helping me out of this particular jam at that particular time. So that was my rationalization for pawning the ring.
And for the record, you and Stamey turned out just fine.
Just okay, yeah.
Just fine.
Stamey
Better
did
than
great.
okay.
Yeah,
She
but
married
then,
up.
She did great. So yeah, that's a sad. I wish I had that ring still, but I do not. But at the time, it served its purpose.
There you go.
And then the following week, everything was better again. And then the week after that, everything turned around. But that 1 week, that 1 month, where I needed an extra $300-400,
it's a hell of a ring.
it was.
When we come back for part 2, we're going to talk about the murder. We're going to talk about the insurance fraud. We're going to talk about everything unraveling and your role in it as private investigator. Dino Tripodis.
This is like a real podcast right now.
We've had the wrong host the whole time.
You see how he dovetailed right into the close? That was awesome.
Thank you and good night.
Good night.